Hello and welcome back to Land Rover Repairs. So I'm gonna start working on the rear end of the Rover. I want to get the brakes, well the brakes are done, but I want to get the axles in and finish these up and put the shocks on and probably the rear handles, paint the rear cross member. But anyway, so right now I'm working on the axles. So I'm going to install the axle cap and the axle itself. So I haven't been working on the brakes on this thing or the rear axle for at least for a year or so or longer. So I went searching around my boxes to find all my pieces and parts. So I found the axle cap that goes on the end here. It was already painted, that I cleaned and painted it up. But the important thing is that I kept all the gaskets together. The axle end, the one that goes on the end of the axle, this little seal, and this little thing and a little cap. So see, I put everything in bags. And then here, the rear axle bolts. So here's all the bolts that are going to here. So it's a little tip or a good idea to do because you're not going to remember or where all the bolts go. And these are special hardened bolts for the axles. So I'm going to put these together. Like I bagged them up, I don't know, that was probably 2 years ago or a year ago or whatever, whenever I brought it into the garage. So this has been a good idea to always bag things up and to keep them together in a box. And plus also always write on the bags. Okay, also it took me a while to find these. These are the brake ones. But I found these in another box. I have so many boxes of parts that I'm losing track of what's going on. So, okay, so you have your axle and you're putting in your bearings, okay? I bought this nifty little tool. It's the same size as the end. It was only about $5 or $4 or something with an order from Bearmach. So it goes on there and you use a screwdriver. And you can use that to tighten and loosen your bearings. So I put new bearings in here and I put new bearing races in and I packed the bearings full of grease. I didn't show you this because what's the point? Because there's so many videos of people showing you how to do that. Rover Tasmania, he does a real good job of showing you how to do that. So I have it on and I have the bearing in there, and then there's a lock nut and a lock washer that you actually pound over with you would use a hammer and a chisel, pound it to lock your nuts on there or whatever with each other. So some people use fancy tools, or the manual says use what is it, indicator, a dial indicator to find out what your play is, but I just do it by feel. If you can move it around smoothly as you're snugging it up and moving it back and forth, if it stays smooth, like there's no movement in it, and it's got a little bit of drag to it because of the bearing grease, you're good. You don't really need to have any special tools or nothing like that. So, all right, so we're going to work on, I guess we'll get the axle in there. So again, I put the axle into the corner and I forgot all about it and had to go search and find it. So again, I left the nut with the axle so that doesn't get lost, and the washer as well. Some of these parts are probably going to speed up because it's not really important. So one thing you want to look for when you're looking at your axles, your drive axles, is to see if these things are straight. Which is a funny story, as I started looking at it and then I realized, I was like, man, this thing's all messed up on the ends. And then I realized that this is a seal that's on the end of it that I left on. And here I thought it was all messed up on the end. So let me see if I can get that off. Working on them. So anyways, back to here. Like these are pretty good. They've got some paint on it or something there. So in this end, you could see they're all on a straight line. There's a little chamfer on the ends, but it's still, it's not even worn. It's barely worn. The truck only has 66,000 miles on it, or 62,000 miles on it. So it's actually pretty nice. So you take your axle, just going to lay it there, it's just like that. Then I'm going to take some mineral spirits. And clean up the surface where the axle, where the seal's going to go. Take our axle seal, and what I like to use when it comes to things like these is I use, it's called sticky tack gasket sealant. So I'll take a box, good old Miller Lite box, which I use for all my templates. The lid off. What I like to do is with the sticky tack, I'll put the gasket down and I'll just start brushing it all over. And then I'll flip the gasket over and then I'll put some more of the sticky tack on there, and I just let the extra be on there. So I'm not trying to be perfect or anything. So see, you can see, then you can just stick it right on there. It doesn't actually dry, that stuff, so it's always sticky. So, and I also put an extra dab around the inside edge here. So I'll put it on the axle here. So then I can line it up. See if I can get it into the diff. Oh, there it goes. There, it's going into the differential, so that's good. So then, let's see here. Then, with my bag of bolts that I kept, so I didn't lose them, I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on there and put these ones in there. Okay, so I had one heck of a time trying to get this cap on here, this end cap. I put it on, I started tightening these bolts down, and there was paint inside the holes, which made it hard to get the bolts in. And then, as I was tightening it, the bearings were no longer spinning smooth, like the hub wouldn't spin. So the ring inside there, the retaining ring around the bearing, where you, the snap lock ring or whatever, where you kind of pound it around both sides. So the outer rim was still straight. I noticed that it was scraping on there, so I had to pound that ring around, the whole way around inside, cup it all the way in, and then the cap would go on. And the cap is you Land Rover guys will probably laugh at me, since I'm new to all this. So this cap is really snug trying to get it onto here, so I actually had to hammer it in inside. Like, I put 3 bolts in, and then I hammered with where there was no bolt, I hammered in, and I kind of tapped it in the whole way in, and then I ran these 3 bolts in, and then then I put the other 3 in. And also, okay, so I put that in, I put the little foam looking cogwheel looking seal, I put that inside, I put the washer and then the nut on. And so none of this isn't torqued down properly yet, but once I get the drum on and the wheel, then I can torque the axle down, unless it's some type of crazy number. But anyways, so I put that on, and then this is the drain hole, or the fill hole for the hub with oil. You put your EP90 in there, or some type of thick oil inside there. So this side's in, and it's together. And that was another thing that was in one of the bags that I had marked. So it was missing before, but since it's in the bag, I held it all. So it's very important to mark your bags. So hub's on, this is on. I'm just gonna throw the cap on just so I don't lose it. Give it a little tap just to keep it on there. So then I'm gonna put the drum on next. Okay, so I got the drums, and all I did was use the wire brush, a heavy wire brush, and cleaned them up and put some paint on them just so they look good. And also cleaned up the inside of them, threw a little paint in there. And these are actually mounted with these mount holes, these 3 holes here. They're actually go on there a certain direction. Holy moly. This thing's working against me every which direction. I'll be right back. Holy moly. All I gotta say is that was a big pain in the butt. So, to get the drum on, I had to clean up the paint around the inside of the drum. I had to clean the paint along here. And as I was spinning it, it wouldn't sit flat against the hub. So I checked all that and I scraped all the paint around the inside just to make sure. So now it runs true with the backing plate the whole way around. Before it was like wobbling back and forth and the brakes were catching. They only catch just a smidge right there. It's probably just a high spot of it, but the rest of it, it's spinning smooth now. And I had to use the old ones, the old caps here, the flatheads to hold it tight against there, because the new ones aren't flush. If you could see that, they're not flush. So I ground it down and I took a cutoff wheel and I made the slit bigger in here. I have to grind it down a little bit more, but holy moly, it's on. So all right, so that's done, and I got to gather up the tools and move them to the other side. All right, got this side all done next, and I used the lessons learned from the other side, and I got this pounded on a lot easier, quicker, and faster than the other side. So that's good lessons learned for the other side, so when I do the other wheels too. So also these bolts here are actually Whitworth bolts, and it's actually a 5/16 Whitworth WW. You see that on there? Which is, you have to Google that, but it's not English, it's not metric, it's Whitworth. It's its own little British wrenches. So I bought a set of these, probably about, it's like a 6-piece set of sockets and 6-piece set of wrenches, boxed end wrenches and stuff on eBay or whatever. I didn't pay too much because they are expensive, but anyways. So, Whitworth bolts, look into it. It's something interesting to learn about. Okay, so now I'm outside here and I'm going to clean up all the bump stops. And since they're all still pretty good, I'm just going to wire wheel them and clean them and paint the metal parts. And then these are the pieces and brackets. Well, this rusty mess here is just the pieces and brackets. I need these brackets here to put the seals on. These are the parts of the door frame that I just replaced, which is all rusted out, and I have to take these off so I can reuse them for the next, when I put the seal back on to the truck. And also I'll be cutting the handles off of the old rear cross member. So that's next. Okay, so I cut the two handles off the old cross member, and the one actually that looks like somebody must have used it as a tow hook or something, so I had to bend it to get the holes to line back up again. So these hold on the seal that goes onto the seal plate, the seal, the wide seal or whatever instead of the thinner seal. And then here's your bump stops. They're all cleaned up, wire wheeled them. So I'm going to throw some core seal rust converter on it and paint all these black. So that'll be the next step. So while those are drying, well, actually when I go to paint these, I'm going to actually paint the rear cross member too and get that all done. So then the rear cross member will be painted, these guys will be painted, and they'll be drying while I work on other pieces of parts. Also, there's the POW of the old Sills that used to be on there that I cut these off of, and the step pieces that are left over that are not actually a step. Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick one of these attached to the seal. Here we are. So this goes over here, then there's a plate down underneath here, then this bolts onto there, and then there's a slit on the other side, and it bolts in just like that. And then the seal that comes down, the decorative kind of thing that makes it look nice, has brackets that come off of it, so then it bolts onto there. So this little piece here, it could be reused, don't need to buy new ones. And also that brings up another point. You think, why is it that I don't go and buy new parts? Like, why didn't I buy new bump stops? Why didn't I buy new handles, which are really cheap? These are all cheap parts. I want to try to reuse as much as I can. I don't want to buy new parts just to buy new parts or whatever. So that's just the way my mentality or the way that I like to do things or whatever. So simple things like this, you clean them up and you put them back on, they're fine. These are just, they just sit there. These things too, handles, these are still solid. They're rusty, and I already wired brushed it, but you know, these are still all plenty good. I don't even know if I could buy these anymore, but anyways. So you might think, why is that? That's weird or whatever. Why you keep reusing parts? But I'm more of a reuse person, recycle and keep them using instead of buying new. So anyways, off my soapbox there. All right, so this is going to be the end of the video. We're just going to keep on working on things, and pretty much this is how the videos are going to go. I'm going to just work on little projects and get this all done and over with. And I'm kind of working from the back, on the bottom, on the back, moving forward. So next video, I don't know what I'll be working on, but we'll see. But thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. You guys are great. I appreciate all the questions and the comments. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.